Welcome to the Kentucky Leadership Development and Discipleship Academy, where leaders are equipped, disciples are strengthened, and your calling is developed for kingdom impact.
Welcome and thanks for listening to this training session for the continuing education put on by the Leadership Development Department at the Kentucky Church of God of Prophecy. My name is Dallas Luttrell. I am a pastor here in the state of Kentucky, and we have a subject today that is not necessarily super exciting. It's not something that we really look forward to doing, but it is an important subject, and we want to look at necessary but the forgotten side of church management. As I said, my name is Dallas Luttrell. I'm the lead pastor at the Greater Hope Church of God of Prophecy in Russell Springs, Kentucky. I've been a pastor for about 15 years, a little more. I also serve on the Kentucky Church of God of Prophecy State Board of Directors. I'm District 5 Presbyter. I'm Kentucky State Property Administrator. This is the administrator for our vacant properties. We have about 5 churches. I'm also a 27-year state government employee, so I understand red tape. Some disclaimers. I am not a lawyer. All information received today should be verified with professionals. I am not a real estate professional. I am not an expert in this field. All information received today should be verified with professionals. The following are situations I have encountered in my role as vacant property administrator for the Kentucky Church of God of Prophecy or while pastoring. And I'll give the same disclaimer. All information received today should be verified with professionals. I repeated that 3 times only because I am not an expert in these fields. So anything that I say that you question or that you need clarification, check with an attorney, check with the real estate professional. But as I said, these are things that I have encountered, some problems over the years. Our learning objectives today, we're going to be talking about church mergers and general business practices. So for the church mergers, when we leave here, you will know when to implement a church merger, how to implement a church merger, and some practices that will make the merger so much smoother for you. Then some general business practices. We want to talk about insurance, we want to talk about deeds, and we want to talk about real estate contract. Specifically, we will be talking about land contracts. So part 1, mergers. This section isn't about should you or should you not merger. That's a whole separate category and subject field in itself as to should we merge with another church, should we not merge with another church. But this section is about once you decide to merge, how to go about merging. It's to inform you of what to expect, what to do, and when to do it. My church was involved in the church merger about a year ago, and some of the things that we're going to be detailing and talking about is some problems that we encountered during the church merger on the business side. From the organizational side within the church of God of Prophecy, it went very smoothly. The transition of the 2 churches coming together was very smoothly, but the business side was not so smooth, and that's what I want to help you with today. When to merge. Once the decision is made to merge, it isn't as easy as closing the doors to one church and the 2 bodies physically coming together and begin to worship. And let me back up just a moment. I think it goes without saying, but I learned a long time ago in my government career, you can't assume anything. We don't want to merge 2 churches without getting the national, regional, or state bishop involved. They have to be involved from the very moment you start talking about it. Okay, so once the decision has been made that it's good for two churches to merge, often it's two struggling churches, close proximity coming together, too small, in theory, makes a larger, stronger church. Sometimes that's not the case. So what we need to do is have a clear and honest dialogue and provide plans and objectives to both the receiving church and the church that's closing. This is extremely important to conduct a business meeting prior to physically closing the church. And we will explain why in just a moment. What to cover in that business meeting. This is a cartoon that I found humorous. We have decided everything except who gets custody of the pastor. Well, that is a cartoon. There's a lot of truth to that. You need to cover everything. What to cover in the business meeting? One, obviously, you have to approve the merger. Your church has made the decision to merge with another church. You need to take it before the conference, talk about it. You've already had the dialogue. You've already talked about the positives. You've talked about the negative things that could possibly happen. You have the clear and concise plan to merge, and you need to approve that in the business meeting. Number two, you address the status of all property. This is to include, but not limited to, real property. Real property is the land, the buildings, the contents of the building, the table that Aunt Sally gave the church in 1945. If you want to gift that back to the family, you need to do that in the business meeting because it will come up, trust me. Next, what happens to the bank accounts? The funds in those accounts. If there is a mortgage, it's critical that you check with the lending institution that holds the mortgage on the church that is closing. Update the trustees if necessary. It's been my experience that trustees at times have not been updated for years and years and years. Had one situation with one of the properties that we were looking to liquidate here in Kentucky. Every single trustee was dead. So that created somewhat of a problem. The church had already closed. It was being transferred to another church. All the trustees were gone. So in the business meeting, update the trustees. Those trustees do not have to be recorded on the deed. You just have to have minutes updating and showing who the current trustees are and the effective date of the merger. Completing the merger after the business meeting. And this is where we found in the merger that we did with the church in our county that became very complicated. So immediately after that business meeting, the clerk is to prepare minutes of the business conference and provide a copy of the minutes to the receiving church. So if Church B is merging with Church B, the leadership of the receiving church needs a copy of those minutes. Then number two, under the deed, a lawyer will prepare a deed. He or she will want the minutes of the approving merger. That's why it's really important at this point is when you go to get the new deed prepared, the lawyer will need the minutes approving the merger. In our particular merger, the church had already closed. The people had dispersed. There was not a functioning church. There was not a business conference, and the lawyer had a difficult time figuring out how to transfer the church to us. The state office had to get involved, and it wasn't particularly difficult. It just was time-consuming. The trustees' director from the closing church will be required to sign the property over to the receiving church. The receiving church trustees and directors then will be required to sign the new deed. This is important to also make sure the deed is filed with the proper authority of your state or county. Here in Kentucky, that is the county clerk's office. Also keep a copy of the deed in your church files. Bank. It will be necessary for the closing church to close and transfer all funds to the receiving church. It's critical that all checks have been cleared, all automatic debits and subscriptions have been accounted for. The bank will need a copy of the minutes. The bank will not close and transfer funds without a copy of the minutes. If they don't have it, it becomes, again, very, very difficult. The state office has to get involved. The treasurer of each church, along with the receiving pastor and treasurer, should review and balance all of the accounts. The utilities, this was the one that we really didn't understand, but once all the utilities is turned off from the closing church, if you decide to turn them off, we kept them on and just simply wanted the bills transferred to us. They will need a copy of the closing church's minutes and the receiving church's EIN. We really did not understand why they needed the EIN. We had it. Eventually we found it and provided both the closing church, and then we gave them our EIN. Subscriptions. Need to cancel all subscriptions. Sometimes we forget about all the things that we have going on in our church simply because they're automatic debits. Cancel subscriptions such as, but not limited to, your computer software programs, your CCLI, your worship tools, church management tools, anything that you have, make sure those are canceled. You don't want to be billed for those. And in conclusion, just really quickly, should you find yourself in a merger situation, this information will make it much smoother and less stressful for you. The most single important thing that I would recommend is make sure you have minutes from the closing church. If you have that, it makes all these things so much smoother. Again, let me say the national, regional, and state bishop must be involved from the moment you begin to contemplate a merger. I don't think your state bishop would be really excited if you call him up and say, hey, we're merging with our sister church and it's happening next week. In fact, it's not even possible. Should you have questions, I am available by phone or email. That's my name, my office number, and my email address. Part 2. General church business practices. Just a few days ago, we attended a conference in Cleveland. It was called Stewardship. And one of the presenters was our organization's attorney, Stephen Lentz. And he provided a book, and the first page or two really caught my attention, and I would like to share that with you today. It really sums up the state of church business in most churches. It says, the last time I checked, most pastors did not enter the ministry with an MBA, nor did they intend to get an MBA as a result of their calling to pastor a church. A good friend works with burned out pastors all over the nation. He regularly gives them a survey inquiring why they entered the ministry. The overwhelming majority of pastors entered the ministry to help people and to preach the Word of God. This is not surprising. What is surprising is that 80 to 90% of the time spent in ministry has nothing to do with either of these noble desires. Most of a pastor's time is spent managing the business of the church. Some do this adequately. Some excel in this area. This is disturbing, but the vast majority fail miserably. According to Dr. Solis, the day in and day out failure of this part of the ministry builds up over time and eventually manifests itself in some form of defeated or abnormal behavior. Our pastors are ill-equipped to handle the day-to-day pressures and responsibility of real ministry. What spurred me to do this presentation was I was one of those pastors that was ill-equipped to handle the business of the day-to-day church. I was a 27-year state government employee. I ran a state agency with a multi-million-dollar budget. I could handle that, but the church business was a complete different animal, and I had no training, no real direction, and we learned by floundering our way through the processes. So while these things today will just hopefully help you not to have the stress that I did. The objective in this section is to provide information with some basic principles of church business. If followed, it will make a sale, merger, or securing a mortgage easier for the church leader. This one is kind of a no-brainer. We all have insurance in our homes, but have an annual checkup. We go to the doctor for our checkups, have an annual insurance checkup. When I went to the current church I'm pastoring now, COVID was just coming to an end. Properties had not skyrocketed yet. Inflation had not taken off yet. And our church was insured for about $300,000. I felt like we were grossly underinsured. I went to our insurance agent. They did an assessment, and we were underinsured by $900,000. We wrote a new policy, and our building now is insured for $1.2 million. No surprise, our rates tripled, but it's necessary. Had we had a major loss, we would have been hurting. We would have not been able to replace our building. Shop rates. Insurance rates have skyrocketed as well. Personally, my insurance, homeowners went up 25% for next year. Our church insurance rates are going up. Shop rates. But be really careful in insurance that you insure with a company that understands churches, that understands ministry, that understands the liabilities and so forth of a church. This next one's really important too. We have two vehicles at our church. We have a church van, and then we have a 16-foot box truck that we use for our food ministry. You have to name authorized drivers of those vehicles with your insurance company. They will ask for a copy of their driver's license. They will do a check of their driver's license. You want to make sure that everyone driving your vehicles are capable and licensed. The next topic we're going to talk about is deeds to the property. This is the one that I have had a lot of experience with just in the last few months. The deed is where I have started getting gray hair and losing sleep. It started several years ago. I was pastoring an independent church, and we wanted to do a major remodeling program. And the Holy Spirit prompted me, I guess, to ask questions about the deed. Now, this property had been donated to the church for a church as long as it was a church. And when I looked at the deed, it was deeded to the former pastor with the intent of it being a church, and it was ever disbanded as a church, the property would revert back to the family that gifted the church. So at that point, I said, we're not spending any money on this project. We've got to figure out the deed. So I made some phone calls, contacted a couple of people, got in touch with the family that donated the church. It had been many, many years ago. Contacted the former pastor. We got together in an attorney's office, and they deeded the church properly to our church. We were able to finish the building project. So deeds are really, really important. A deed is simply a document that transfers ownership from the seller to the buyer. It's like your car title. We're all familiar with car titles. It's in essence that same thing. Have a copy of your deed in a safe, secure location. Send a copy of your deed to the regional state office. Record the deed, and as I said earlier, in Kentucky, it's recorded with the county clerk's office. I'm going to share a few stories, what I have encountered with deeds just in the last few months. We have a church that about 3 weeks ago we had listed, and I received an offer on this church. It was a large church, building-wise, property-wise, with a parsonage. We had an offer, and we were in the negotiating stages, and the buyer just happened to be an attorney. And he checked the zoning requirements. And the church has been there for about 30 or 40 years, and they had a variance in the deed that allowed that property to be a church and nothing more. So we've had to stop the negotiation, and we're trying to get it rezoned because he wants to make it some sort of a commercial project. So you'll find all sorts of things in the deeds. Another church that I'm dealing with simply did not have a deed. There was no deed to the property except to some original owners back in the 60s. We couldn't find the trustees. I spent hours searching, trying to find the people that sold the church to us. Eventually, I stumbled across a name that led me to a name that led me to another name. I contacted them, and as I speak now, the paperwork is in an attorney's office getting us a deed drawn up so we can liquidate that property. Another church that we're dealing with has what is called a quit claim deed, and that's something that we'll be covering in a few moments. But in the quit claim deed, you never really know what's going to happen when you do title search and try to figure out what is going on with the property. I'd also recommend that have a copy of your deed in a safe, secure location. Have it in a fireproof safe somewhere where there's 3 deeds available: state office, county recorder's office, and in your secure location. I find that many times our deeds have not been recorded at the county clerk's office. There's a couple of types of deeds that I have seen. There's several types of deeds, but these are the 2 most common. One is called a general warranty deed. The other is a quit claim deed. Not to be confused with a quick claim deed, which there is no such thing, but most people calls them quick claim deeds, but it's quit, Q-U-I-T. A general warranty deed is the most common and offers the greatest protection to the buyer. Restrictions, covenants, easements are all recorded in the general warranty deed. This is really important to know. The restrictions follow the property from one seller to another seller. A personal note: I bought 18 acres about 13 years ago with a house. We did the title search. It was discovered there was an easement through my property to another farm. It's only about 20 foot by about 50 foot, but it goes right through the middle of my property in front of my house. I've done everything in the world that I can do to get that removed, and it is going to be there for the duration unless the people that was granted the easement relinquishes that easement. So it will follow that property. those restrictions will follow the property from one seller to another. The other type of deed is a quit claim. A quit claim deed offers the least amount of protection. The restrictions, covenants, and easements are generally not on the quit claim deed. Land contracts. We have one church that I'm dealing with that bought their property on a land contract several years ago. The church is closed down, and I met with the realtor. We were getting ready to list it. I went to locate the deed, and there was no deed for the property. Called the state office. They did not have a copy of the deed. Located the previous pastor. He provided me some documentation where they had bought the church on land contract. Land contracts, are they good or are they bad? You're going to love this answer. It depends. Good. There's little or no qualifying when you buy on land contract. It's between buyer and seller. Y'all get together at the McDonald's. You talk about selling the property. You agree to a price. You agree to terms. You agree to an interest rate. You write the little down payment. He hands you the keys and the property is yours. Not exactly. The property is not yours. There's little or no qualifying. It's simply an agreement between two individuals. There's a lot less red tape in a land contract. It's quick. You can do it in a matter of a few minutes. Less money down, sometimes very little money down. The bad, there is no deed. The deed does not come to the buyer until you've paid off the note with the seller. Inspections are not required, typically. If I was buying even on land contract, I would want some inspections. Some of the inspections that you typically see in a real estate transaction is a sewer or a septic tank inspection, a roof inspection, insect infestation inspection, and there can be multiple other inspections, heating and cooling, and just the list can go on and on. Typically, those are not done on a land contract. Title work will not be done. You will not know whether there's easements, restrictions, things of that nature on the property. So those are some things to consider. The fact that there is a little red tape is good on one side, but the other side it's bad because you have no protection. Once the contract is satisfied, then that is when the deed is issued. The particular church in question that I just mentioned, they paid off the loan in full. We had a statement that said that the contract was satisfied, it was paid off in full. The problem was we never took that to an attorney and got a new deed issued to the church. So that has taken me 4 weeks to find all the documentation, finding who the descendants of the people that used to own the building, and we are in the process now of getting us a deed for the church. Conclusion: review insurance rates and update coverage. Locate and record the deed. General warranty deed is the better option. Avoid a land contract if possible. And if you buy on contract, have a lawyer write the contract. Again, this is my personal information. And then I do want to add one other topic to this that's not on the PowerPoint, and that is incorporation of our local churches. This is something that we did not see several years ago, and we incorporated about a year ago, and there's some FAQs, frequently asked questions about incorporating, that I'd like to answer for you today. Is it necessary? Well, it's not necessary until you need to be incorporated. It's like your automobile or your home ownership, it's insurance. It's not necessary until you need it. So we incorporated. So you might say, can we incorporate ourselves? Yes, you can. But in Church of God of Prophecy, we recommend, or international offices recommend, we use the law of Anchor Legal out of Virginia. They have incorporated several of our churches all over the United States. That is who we used. Next question you might ask is it expensive? Well, I'm not going to quote a dollar amount because things change. It will cost some money, but it is well worth it. Is it difficult to incorporate? Actually, it's very, very simple. Contact Anchor Legal. Tell them you're interested in incorporating. You will have an initial consultation. In a few days, you'll get an email from one of their paralegals with a list of items that you need to send them. You will send that to them along with a check, and they will start the process. Next question. How long does this take? Again, the answer that I really don't like, but it depends. It's going to depend on how busy they are, how quickly you get them the information that they ask for. It's going to depend on them getting to it and getting it processed. And then they have to send it to the Secretary of State's office, and it depends on how backlogged they are. Several years ago, we did our own incorporation, and it took a week. We hit everything just right. We did it ourselves. That was when I was with an independent church. But I made the initial call with Anchor Legal on August 29th. And sometime in mid-December, we got confirmation that it had been filed and accepted at the Secretary of State's office. They will issue you a new EIN. And I don't know why that is, but you will be issued a new EIN for your tax purposes and so forth. And I really recommend that we incorporate. It protects the officers and the leaders and the members of the church from personal liability. Again, the Business of Church by Stephen Lentz. I recommend this book. I looked it up on Amazon. You can get a new one for about $19. It's money well spent, and I would recommend getting this book, because church business is different than it was 20 or 30 years ago. I hope this was informative. I hope it helped you. It was quick. It was just, we hit the high points. If you have any questions, please feel free to call me. My office number is 270-866-4036, or you can email me at dallas4900@gmail.com. God bless you, and thank you. Well, there's a deed for the church. There will be a deed for it. It just won't be in your name. So that's the place to start. So find the deed for that property. So that's what I did. I called the county clerk's office in whatever county this is, and I said, hey, this is the address. We own the property. I can't locate a deed. So she will look it up, or he will look it up, and she or he will say, there is no deed to that property. They'll say there is no deed to that property under the name of the Church of God of Prophecy. The last known deed was, and she'll tell you the date, and she will send it to you. It may cost a couple of dollars, but he or she will send it to you. And you read that deed, and at the bottom of the deed, the trustees, or if it's a corporation, the directors, whoever signed the deed, that's the place you got to start. If it's a long time ago, they're probably going to be dead. What I did with this particular church, I had the name of the church, and I Googled that name of the church. Found nothing. Made a couple of phone calls, found nothing. I did a variation of the name, Googled a variation of the name, and I got a hit. And it said, current pastor of this church is. So I Googled him, and I found he had a common name. I made about 3 phone calls and finally found the person who was the pastor of that church. And he said, well, we sold that church to your church about 20 years ago. He said, all those people are gone, but this is a current list of the trustees or the directors. And so that keyed me that he was incorporated. I said, so y'all are a corporation? He said, yes. So he gave me a number of the president of the corporation. I went on the Secretary of State's office, did a search for that church, and I found a list of all their officers. So I called one of the officers that I was able to find a number. They were very helpful, put me in contact with the people that I needed. They acknowledged and agreed that that loan was paid off. We had just failed to get a deed. I put together a packet, sent it to the attorney, and we're waiting now for our new deed to issue. But that was a long answer to your question, but the first place to start is the county clerk's office. Give them the address. They will tell you or send you a copy of the last deed. It may not be in our name, but you will get a deed. That's the place to start.
Thank you for being a part of the Kentucky Leadership Development and Discipleship Academy. Check out our other trainings, tools, and resources in the Academy to continue strengthening your leadership.